Welcome, everybody. Welcome to episode number 48 of Sports Cards Live. Joining me tonight will be Adam, the Real 27 guy. Before we bring out Adam, I want to thank last Wednesday's guest, Dustin, from YouTube's The Personal Finance Dad channel. We had a great conversation. We talked about zagging in the hobby, changing your strategy, population reports, many more things. Check out that episode. It's living on the YouTube channel in the archives. Last Saturday, joining me was Eric Norton from Beckett Live Presents. Another great conversation. We talked about the challenges of pricing cards for price guides, among many other things. He was an awesome guest, has his own show. Check it out as well. I also want to thank my after hours guest from Saturday, my good friend Amit Acharya. We had a great discussion. We talked about what is a rookie card, what should be a rookie card, and is the definition too narrow? And it was a great conversation. Check that one out. This coming Saturday, joining me will be John Newman from the Sports Card Nation podcast, as well as Hobby Hotline. Next Wednesday, joining me is going to be Jordan Hagedorn. Jordan is a Brett Favre super collector. He does a podcast called For the Hobby. He's also an NFL agent. Should be really interesting and insightful. So check out that episode next Wednesday with Jordan. Want to welcome all the new viewers joining tonight. Thanks to Adam for bringing new viewers to the show. If you have not yet subscribed, please do. Please like the channel, leave comments, all that stuff. But most importantly, come back again. Come check out another episode. At the end of the show, we're going to be doing Card of the Day and the Sports Cards Live 5 with Adam, so that should be a lot of fun. As always, your comments and your questions are in play tonight, so don't be shy. Fire away. And let's get into it. Tonight's guest is Adam. Adam goes by the Real 27 guy on Instagram, and he's actually an Instagram legend. He almost has 4,000 subscribers right now. He does his top 100 countdown once a year, where he goes through his collection and shows you all the cards, his top 100 cards in order of value from 100 down to 1. Really cool stuff. He also joined me on episode number 26 back in July. So if you like this episode tonight, you can go back and watch that one. We had a great chat back then. He has a pioneering podcast called the Basketball Card Podcast, and he has a new magazine called the Basketball Card Fanatic. He hails from Salt Lake City, Utah. He's a Utah Jazz fan. Let's bring him out, my man. There he is. Adam, how are you, buddy?
Wait, that way. I'm great. I'm great. Thanks for having me on again, Jeremy. I've been looking forward to this all week.
Man, it's my pleasure to have you back. You were awesome last time. It's fun to have you back again. Man, listen, I mean, we had a monster sale in the hobby not too long ago, just last week. I'm really curious on what your response and what your reaction was to that. I'm talking about the Giannis logo man that sold for over $1.8 million, breaking the previous record of a modern basketball card, being the LeBron James, both cards sold by Golden Auctions. You're a basketball card expert. You're writing the magazine now. What was your reaction to that sale when you saw what happened with it?
It feels like we have a new record every week now, right? It's crazy. When I first saw that card was going up for auction, I knew it was going to be a huge sale. People traditionally think about the Logo Man Auto as the very best rookie card. And if push comes to shove and you're comparing different Logo Man rookie autos between, National Treasures to Immaculate, most of the big time collectors feel like National Treasures is the best. So maybe the most popular player since LeBron's rookie year, maybe the best rookie card of that player. I think there's a case to be made that it's the best card since 2003 Exquisite. I probably wouldn't say that it is, but I do think that it's in a group of 5 or 10. There's some things about the card that aren't perfect, and we can talk about that. But I mean, this world of $2 million cards is definitely like a crazy new world, right? It's not a world that I live in. I'd like to pretend, but I'm more of a normal collector than that, right? Like that's just a ton of money. But it didn't shock me that it did incredibly well.
Yeah, no, man. I mean, I thought, going into it and hearing Ken Golden speak about it, I think he was He was hopeful it would hit 2 million. It came really close, but it did beat the record that he set previously the month before, or maybe 2 months before, and at the end of June, with the LeBron James Gold RPA out of 23 that sold for, that was 1.8. I thought it was 1.845. I'm just going to share my screen here for a second, guys, and let's have a look, because this is the email, or it's a part of the email that I just, oh, wrong one. Whoop, here we go. Hold on a second. There we go. This is what Golden Auctions has sent out, kind of showing here's the records that they've broken recently. So this is the Giannis right here. This is the card we're talking about, $1.857 million. And it's pretty amazing. It's a one of one. So, and we're going to talk about market capitalizations a little bit later, but it's a one of one. So the market cap on this card is exactly that, $1.857 million. But the LeBron James here, I mean, it sold for 1.8. That was actually, I thought it was 1.845 million with the buyer's premium. And if that's the case, the Giannis still beat it. And I don't know that anyone was were you expecting it to sell for more than the LeBron RPA sold for here at 1.8?
I hadn't really thought about it. I hadn't really thought, that it would or that it wouldn't. I think that as you, let me interject something where you talk about market cap here. This is an interesting place to talk about it, because you have a situation where you have one card versus a card that there's 23 of, but I think there's only 2 in a 9.5 grade, and so it's kind of like a subgroup of the 23. If you were to figure out what the market cap is of those 23, it's a lot, right? It's like 10. It's over $10 million. It's way more than the Giannis is. So, you have to ask yourself what kind of collector you are. Are you somebody who would rather have the one card and maybe the very best card of a player and have it be of Giannis, or one of the very best rookie cards of LeBron and have one of those 23? I'm somebody who actually likes the one of one thing more than the one of 23 thing. But there are different type of collectors out there. Certainly, LeBron is just way more popular than Giannis is. Giannis has this incredible following, but LeBron's got maybe one of the greatest followings of all time. So they're in the same class, but different types of cards. The more interesting thing to see today would be if one of LeBron's Logo Man Auto rookie cards was to go up for open auction. And yes, I think that would sell way higher than the Giannis.
Yeah, I think so too. When the Giannis went for sale, I didn't think it would sell for as much as LeBron did, simply because of the two different players. I mean, there's more people that are after a rookie card, even if it's a gold parallel. I consider that a rookie card. I think most people do nowadays. More people want that card, I think. And the player, I mean, LeBron James is just accomplished, and Giannis is not. He's got a couple of MVPs now. Right? Yeah, he's got one or two MVPs. Two. Yeah. So, I mean, he is accomplished, but he hasn't won yet, and LeBron has. So that comes into play all the time. But the fact that it did beat it, I think it's just pretty awesome. And I mean, even if it's not I wonder now if the LeBron would sell, would it beat the Giannis? If the order was reversed, what would happen now, right? I think the LeBron people out there might be like, hey, there's no way we're going to let Giannis beat LeBron on a single card auction. So it could sell for one incremental bid more today. We'll never know. That's a hypothetical, of course, but it's interesting nonetheless. I'm just going to bring up that slide one more time. Let's just take a look, because it's really reflective of what's going on in the market, what's been going on in the market like this year, because the top 4 cards have all sold this year. And not only this year, but all of them since June, with the Mike Trout here being the 3rd card. I mean, look at that, $3.8 million. So basically double what the LeBron and the Giannis did. And I'm wondering, it's a one of one as well. So if it's a one of one of a player who, I mean, he's very popular, but I asked a few people today, and they have never heard of Mike Trout. People have heard of Giannis, people that I asked anyway. So my question is, or what I'm wondering, and I think it's interesting to discuss, is, does the fact that the Trout sold for double the Giannis, and again, they're both one of one rookie year cards, does it mean that the baseball market is twice the size of Giannis, of the basketball market? Or does it mean that Trout is twice as popular as Giannis? Do you have any kind of thoughts on that?
I do. I think that as you look at 2 1-of-1s, it's a data point, but it's literally like the smallest sample size that we could use. Now, it's an interesting one because it's in both cases, it's one of their best cards. For me to think about, which market size is greater, I would probably take an approach where I would look at something like a whole quantity of a run and compare that to another whole quantity and like the market cap of those 2 runs. And that's how I would determine, which one is larger. But I think you're exactly right that 2 of the very biggest basketball cards sold, and they sold for less than the biggest baseball card of the era. My question would be, again, if you were to find the best basketball card of the era, which would be, like I said, like a LeBron logo man auto, and if you put that up against the Trout, which one would sell for more? I think that's a good question when we don't know what the answer is.
No, but it's always fun to speculate and discuss these things, right? For sure. Yeah, I wonder too, man. So there were 4 other cards on that slide. I think it's worthy to just take one more peek and address them. So you've got the LeBron gold Topps Chrome gold refractor here, I believe. $322,000. This card is numbered to, I think it's numbered to 500. Is that right?
It's to 50.
50. Wow, even better. So, and that's why it sells for $322,000. What a beautiful card. At the end of the day, it's funny because this card here came out of a pack that in its day was under $5. These cards all up here came out of, well, except for the Trout, the LeBrons and the Giannis all came out of very expensive packages of cards. It's kind of neat, though, that you can buy a card at different price points and still pull cards that can be worth, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars 10 years later. Pretty darn crazy.
So let me ask you on that, Jeremy. If you look at those cards, and let's take the baseball cards out of it for a second. Let's just talk basketball, and let's not think about price at all. If you were to look at those and without regard to price, you were to pick which one you like the most, which one would you say you like the most?
Well, is the one that I would want to own the most? Is that the question? Yeah,
without regard to price.
This guy right here.
Oh, really? Tell me why.
Well, first of all, it's the true rookie card, if you will. It's the 1 out of 99. It's got a nicer patch than the 1 out of 23 that sold for $1.8 million. So the patch right there makes it more interesting. I would say that looking at it, the autograph on this one is nicer, but this one's not horrible. The 1-of-1 logo man Giannis, I mean, yeah, $1.85 million is what it's worth, but it's not a card I covet at all. I'm not a big, for myself and my collection, Adam, and everybody else out there, I'm not a collector of logo men. I'm hockey predominantly, as most people know, and the equivalent in hockey are the NHL Shield cards. I don't own a single one. I don't desire a single one. They're okay, but I don't think they're awesome. They're not colorful. I like the colorful patches. The NBA logo man it's more colorful than the NHL Shield. But for me, I prefer a card that is something that more people can access, that, I think it's nicer. The Mike Trout doesn't really interest me at all because I'm not a big baseball fan. I've never seen Mike Trout play. I don't know really much about him. I do own his Topps Update rookie because it's kind of a card that I think is an important card, but it's not a card that I have a real emotional attachment to. It's a card I bought because I thought it was a good holding at the time. So anyway, my answer is this LeBron James, the true rookie card right here. And I mean, $1 million is a lot of money still. I'd be good owning a card that's worth $1 million. I don't need to get greedy and go to 1.8 now, do I? But I'm going to flip the question on you, Adam. Which one would you prefer to own out of all the cards? Well, it's easier with you because I know, but I'll let you answer.
Well, you know what? I think it's actually a really good question. And as I asked the question, I'm like, shoot, he's probably going to turn this around on me. I'm going to surprise you a little bit. I would take the dual logo man because of the set that it represents. 2003 Exquisite is one of the great sets of all time. It's really inarguably one of the most important basketball sets that has ever been created. And I can say that sort of with authority because it's not a card. It's not actually a set that I own a lot of cards from. I only own 2 cards from it, not pumping it or anything like that, but I recognize the importance of it. That dual logo man, there were 3 original dual logo men that came out of 2003 Exquisite. They weren't autographed, right? They did that in subsequent years, but they used the big 3, Kobe, LeBron, and MJ, really the 3 great players of our last 30 years, maybe like three of the greatest players of all time. And they paired them in each sort of possible way to create these 3 cards. So for me, that's number 1. Number 2, at that point, it's really a tough call for me. And I don't know how to answer it after that. But you hit on something that I think is interesting. And that is that it's really cool that LeBron Gold was accessible by almost everybody. Almost everybody could buy a pack for $5. But everything else up there that's of the basketball variety came out of a pack that originally cost at least $500. And I'm somebody who sort of, if you look at my collection, the majority of my very good cards are cards that came out of packs where anybody could have accessed them. And I love that. I love the golden ticket idea. The golden ticket idea loses just a little bit with me when it's out of a box of, it's out of a, bar of chocolate that costs you $500. It's different.
Yeah. Yeah. And now you posed the question about which would the second most desired card on here be, by ourselves. And I'm kind of looking around thinking, the easy answer, well, ignoring the prices, it'd be hard to dispute that. The same one that you just mentioned, the dual logo man. I think that because it represents the 03 Exquisite, the first issue of Exquisite, the first issue of the super, super premium sets that to this day hasn't really been eclipsed. They haven't been able to come up with something that's better than Exquisite in basketball or the Cup in hockey. So it's really stood the test of time. The equity in these brands are, they're unbeatable as far as the hobby goes. So yeah, I'd probably agree with you on that. And especially ignoring baseball, because I don't think a Trout would beat any of these basketball cards for me, to be quite honest. Maybe the Giannis, but I really like this one here too. This the gold LeBron refractor out of 50 is a great card too. Okay, man, that was fun. That was really fun. So let's go to the comments. We got some people in the house. We'll welcome Legion to the show. As always, Legion, welcome to the show. Jake's there. Jake will be joining me in about a week and a half or so on the show. Jake, welcome. Peter's in the house. Peter says, "Oh, this is a true story." Apparently, it's a true story. The guy that owned the Giannis logo man at one point bought it on eBay, received the card, paid $7,000, received it, saw some yellow substance on it, and returned it. And he went on to Blowout Forums and he made a post saying, "Really sorry to let everybody know, but I had to return the Giannis logo man to the owner because it's not in good enough condition for me."
Yeah.
Well, that guy.
Can I interject on that real quick?
Yeah.
Yeah, Peter's a smart guy. That's true. I don't know if he mentions this. I'm looking at his comment, but the card that you actually see there, and this is the one little bit of what's the word that I'm thinking about? This is the one thing that I think people have against the Giannis is that the Giannis that was originally made that user got on Blowout and kind of complained about, and it was a little weird. I think that guy, he might have owned the other Giannis and he was trying to kind of let the world know that his was better. I think that's maybe what was happening, but I don't really know. I don't really know that story. What I do know is that the card was returned to Panini and they remade the card. So that one that just sold today is actually that sold a few days ago was actually a replacement. Now, some people think that it was replaced and made in a better way because it has more of an original autograph on it. But some people don't like it as much because it wasn't originally pulled, right? It was changed. I would just really love to own the card either way because unlike you, I see it and I say, that's like Giannis's best card. And I see the appeal of it. I do get it. If you were a Giannis collector, that's the card. I own a really big Giannis card, just a single one. And my card is nowhere near anything close to that. That's a huge, huge card, but it was replaced and actually changed out and remade. And so that gives the card, I think, a little bit of a different look from some people.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. I did not realize that it was replaced, but that certainly elevates it even further from the card with the yellow stain on it or the yellow substance. So, but that poor guy that returned it at $7,000. But think about it, back in 2013, $7,000 on a card was a lot more money then than it is today. Nowadays, you can't get much for $7,000, but back then, that was a big expenditure. So, anyway, hopefully the guy hasn't lost too much sleep over it, and he's able to go on with his life, because boy, that would be tough to watch nowadays. So Brian's in the house. Brian, welcome to the show. He says, I really enjoyed the first issue of Basketball Card Fanatic. So Brian had that received, and great to hear. Brian, Joe Sakic 19XX, Alex in the house, welcome to the show. Ernie, Tampa Bay up 5-1. I did see that before the show, and I went heavy on them in my DraftKings tonight, but I'm still in, I think we had 20 guys in it. I was in 4th place before we went live. So we'll see how I do through the third period. Jason's in the house. Evening, everyone. My brother's visiting, so can't think of a better way to hang out than to watch Sports Cards live. Oh, and we stopped at your shop today. Hey, Jason, that's good to hear. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm sure you're having a wonderful evening then. And stick around, man. And hello to your brother as well. Jordan Hagedorn in the house. And Jordan, as I said earlier, will be joining me in about a week from now. He says these are, so referring to the Golden Auctions results up, he says these are public sales. I'd imagine that the recent Logo Man 1 of 1 that Nat recently bought eclipsed $1 million. So I think it's worth saying Nat Turner is a high profile collector, and he's known to own, I think he just showed on Instagram, he owned all 3 of those dual Logo Man from 03 Exquisite. So those cards are now tucked away in a personal collection, likely won't see the light of day for 50 years. But one guy owns all 3 of them. And it's probably good that he does. I mean, at least everyone knows where they are right now. What do you think what does that say to the market, Adam? What does it say to the market? What does it mean for the hobby when one collector, a high profile collector with means, owns all 3 of those cards, perhaps the 3 most important basketball cards on the planet?
Yeah, three cards that are just, cards that we could dream of, basically. I think what it tells you is that you're not going to ever get the chance at it again. And the thing that is great about that, great and terrible, is you have to look at other things that you might want to collect, that you might want to buy if you were in the market for that. It also tells us, like you said, Nat has the means to buy some of these things. It tells you what cards have the potential to do, because when those cards first came out of the pack, they weren't $1 million cards, right? I remember when the most popular of the 3 cards is the LeBron MJ duel, and at one point I think it sold for $250,000. And I remember at that point thinking, $250,000 for a basketball card? That sounds insane. It doesn't sound insane anymore, because people who've spent that on cards. I know people who've spent that on cards. We've seen people consolidate collections and want to buy one true, amazing grail at the end. And so it becomes this normal thing for people to go out and spend 6 figures on a basketball card. It's not that unusual. So the thing that it really tells me is, if you can see the value in something when it first comes out, you have the potential to do something really special.
Yeah. And if you're at the right place at the right time, and you can actually, make that card yours, you certainly can. It takes a lot of luck, luck, patience at times too. So yeah, I agree. Jake says, good point to Jordan. A lot of big sales are being made privately. I think, Ken Golden even alluded to that when he was my guest a few weeks back. He said, he's brokered several deals between some of these high-end collectors that aren't, where the numbers aren't being publicized. And I think it's kind of good that occurs too, because, we always talk about how eBay lacks transparency, and we think it's a problem. And I think to a degree it is. But when it comes to these super high-end cards and deals happening in private, it adds a bit of mystique, and it allows us to speculate that, we know now that the record for the most paid at public auction for any sports card is that Mike Trout at $3.8 million. But is it truly the most that's ever been paid for a sports card? And I'm going to guess it isn't. I mean, there's just too many other cards out there and deals that have happened. So it may or may not be. I'd guess it probably is. It's almost like, when you're betting on golf, it's like, do you take Tiger Woods or do you take the field, right? I'll take the field on that one and say there might be another card that did exceed $3.8 million at private sale. But good point by these guys that, yeah, there's a lot that goes on behind closed doors that we just don't know about. And really, of the three logo men that are now owned by Nat Turner, I believe two of them were bought privately and only one at public auction. So we'll probably never know what happened with that card. Yamwak says, I agree, Jeremy. Don't understand the affinity for Shields and Logo Man cards. I like the players, not the league logos. Yeah, that's part of my position on it too. I like the, especially being a hockey guy first and foremost, we're spoiled by such colorful patches that it's hard to give those up for a gray and silver or orange and black NHL Shield. Luckily for the NBA Logo Man, it's three colors. It's got a bit more design, a bit more panache to it. It's Jerry West silhouette. It's a cooler league emblem, I would say. 90s hockey collector in the house. Welcome to you. Welcome to the show. Jordan says the Golder Factor is a needle in a haystack. Awesome card. Yeah, 50 only, right? I'd love that. Sean Robb, welcome, says, are these prestigious cards being submitted to Beckett BGS because PSA would have demanded a higher value surcharge? That's an interesting question. What do you think of that, Adam?
I think it's a great question. If I had to state like a general rule, it seems to me that thicker high-end cards go to Beckett and thinner high-end cards go to PSA. That's not always true. I'm kind of like Sean says here. I've submitted some pretty high-end stuff lately, and stuff that people have encouraged me to send to PSA because they felt like, because of how PSA grades centering, that I would actually have a better chance to get a high grade on the card from PSA. But I have a fundamental, and I've said this, I'm not trying to say anything negative about PSA, but I don't fundamentally believe that part of the cost of grading something should be an increase because of its value. I believe that the process should be identical. I don't believe it should cost more. And even though Beckett's made a lot of mistakes recently, a lot of mistakes in terms of how slow they are, and their lag time, and some of those things that you've already talked about on your show. I don't like feeling like I just don't think it's fundamentally right that PSA would say, I'm going to charge you more because I'm giving you a higher grade. That's totally a conflict of interest to me that should not exist. And I think they should. I think they and I understand why they do it for insurance purposes and all that stuff. I don't think it's right though.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I think it's interesting. I never thought about it. You broke it down to the thickness of the card, sort of determining the company that you send it to. I've always thought that, and these go hand in hand, that modern cards are more often sent to BGS and vintage cards are more often sent to PSA. To me, that's what happened here in the case of all those cards, is that they're modern cards, and the general rule in the hobby is Beckett for modern, PSA for vintage, even though I think both are trying to take their piece of the pie from the other eras. So Alex says, I'd go dual Logo Man too. So there's a vote with on your side for that. Jake says, yeah, the Golder Factor is very alluring to me too. Yeah, it's a great card. Bobby Burrell says he loves my honesty, maybe because I chose a card that's $1 million instead of $4 million on that page. Thanks, Bobby. Welcome to you. Jordan says, I heard Panini remade that one of Giannis. So there you go. There's corroborating what you were saying earlier, Adam. Yamak says, I love that hockey's exquisite RPAs can still be pack pulled from an affordable release. So hockey's exquisite RPAs are the ones that come out in the cup. And it's, that those packs started at $300 in 2005. Now they can be up to $600, $700, $800 upon a release. So expensive, but more affordable probably than going back in time and buying a pack of exquisite. I don't even know what exquisite goes for now, right out of the gate. Do you? Although exquisite isn't even really being, that question doesn't apply anymore. So we won't even ask that one. All right. Jake says, very interesting about the Giannis being a replacement. Sure is. Good evening to you, Dominic. Welcome to the show. Amish Dave Archer, welcome to you. Facebook user who I don't know who it is. Hi, boys. Been away for a while. Sorry, I missed so much. Well, hey, it's great to have you back, whoever you are. Feel free to post your name in a comment. Be great to know who we're speaking to. And Paul Cashman, welcome back. Finally off night shift and able to tune in. And says, welcome back to you, Adam. Awesome. Thank you, Paul, for joining us. So the market itself, Adam, we just showed those 12 auctions that have, or 8, whatever that was on the slide there, that have kind of blown away the hobby as of recent, record breaker after record breaker after record breaker. What is your general feeling on the state of the market, the state of the hobby right now? And before you answer, we went into COVID. We took a bit of a dip. People were uncertain. And very quickly, early mid-April, you started seeing it reverse and come up. And now it's just been hockey stick all the way to the sky. Any sort of disciplined investor, and I'm going to use that term, investor, would have the red flags, flying everywhere. What do you think? What do you, as a disciplined collector, you're an investor by default because you have so much money wrapped up in cards like many people do. What's your general feeling on the state of the market right now today towards the end of September here versus where we've been over the past 8-9 months?
So your last guest, I think his name was Dustin, talked about needing to zig sometimes while people zag. And, when I look at the market in a time where there's an incredible increase, I often feel like that's what I need to do. But there's times where you do that and then you realize that you even missed out more on the thing that you wanted because it just kept going up more. And that's happened too. So it's hard to predict. A lot of us who talk a lot in the hobby act like it's easy to tell sometimes. And really, it's really hard. It's hard to know when things are going to go up and when they're going to go down. It's hard to know how things will, how different behavior or how different events will impact how much people are willing to spend. I mean, I'll give you an example. I'm not a football collector, but I've heard that after Patrick Mahomes won his Super Bowl, his cards actually decreased in value. That's just totally opposite to traditional thinking, right? But it's because it's all a supply and demand game. If everyone who's owning something is owning it to then sell it at a certain time, and then everyone lists it, or a disproportionate amount of people listed it at that time, newsflash, that's an increase in supply. And that may lead to a price that's lower than it was beforehand. But wait, what? Mathematically, it makes sense that something would decrease in value after a major achievement? Yeah. I mean, we've seen it in other times too. So I think that it's hard to know always what's going to happen and why it's going to happen. And it's just really easy to get confused sometimes. The other thing that I'll tell you that I think is definitely at play here is you see these major purchases that are happening. A lot of these major purchases are being made not just by investors, as we use them, as we typically call them, which would be defined as like an individual who's investing in a card. We now have cards that are being invested in by groups of people. I've talked before on your show or in other places about how my day job is I'm a controller in a private equity firm. And what you learn about investments is that a group of people can get together, pool their money to then take ownership of a share of a company or a share of an asset or a whole of an asset. As you show some of these prices, the thing that's really clear to me is, and well, I shouldn't say really clear, I believe that what you're seeing is a lot of these assets are being purchased by groups of people or by funds, by pools of capital. And honestly, Jeremy, like this is something that I'm not trying to be like, look at me, like let me pat myself on the back. I've literally been talking about this for 5, 6, maybe 10 years. It was always going to happen. You were always going to have people using the fund model to purchase these rare assets because they are they're little pieces of artwork around modern day heroes that are super limited, rare, iconic, and sought after by people who are really successful. It was always going to happen. And that's a large reason why I stopped selling my high-end cards, right? Like unless I have to, unless it's to fund another high-end card, why would I sell something that is going to have more and more capital like pushed towards that thing? And people, like normal individuals, will be given the opportunity to own pieces of them, right? Like now, the normal person probably can't go out and buy that Giannis card, right? I know I can't. $2 million for cards, it's not going to happen. But I'll tell you what is possible is if you get 500 people together and they each want to own part of it, they can. And the fund model allows for that sort of thing. It's totally possible. Totally makes sense. It's not just one or two entities that are doing it. A lot of entities are doing that right now. So, in answer to your question, I think there's different segments of the market, and we talk about how all of them are doing one thing or doing another, when in reality, they're each kind of doing their own thing. And if you look at each segment on its own, and there, you can divide it in 20 different dimensions. But like when you look at each segment on its own, sort of what's happening kind of makes more sense.
Yeah, no, good points, man. Good points. We've seen this steep incline, and I think a lot of people are starting. You hear a lot of talk of bubble this, bubble that, and a lot of people are becoming a little bit concerned. Is it going to last? And the approach I'm taking is one of cautious optimism. I'm still optimistic, and I'm okay if we see a dip or if we see an adjustment, because I think it's healthy in the long run. You can't just keep going up forever. It just doesn't. Economics just don't support that. But so I'm optimistic about the hobby and the values of the cards, but I'm proceeding cautiously. I may not be buying as many cards as I would otherwise be buying if we hadn't just seen this mass sort of escalation of values. But at the same time, I wonder, well, hey, as Ken Golden puts it, are we truly in the third inning of a 9-inning game right now, or are we closer to the 7th, 8th, or 9th innings right now? And if we are in the third, should we still be buying cards today? And that's where it's hard to just keep on doing it when you know that a card you can buy today for $10,000, you could have bought a year ago for $1,000 or whatever, you know what I mean? So it's a tough balance now for us collectors / investors who still covet these nice cards, but you wonder, do you buy it now and risk a major adjustment or correction coming, or do you buy it now and figure, hey, we're just at the beginning? Because as you said, Adam, there's all these new groups of people buying cards. You see Rally Road doing it. You see the new collectible app and company, CEO of whom is going to be joining me on the show next month. And he'll talk about what that model looks like. Really interesting stuff, and kind of funny, but I've said it before. Probably about 4 years ago, I did a little fund of my own with some friends. Not much, under 5 figures, but not much under 5. Put it together, about 6 or 7 guys. They each put in a few bucks, and I bought some important hockey cards for them: a Bobby Orr rookie, a Wayne Gretzky, Mario Lemieux, Patrick Waugh, and Mark Messier. And that has done very well now for them. Should we sell? They're all going to double their money at least. So I've also thought, that this is coming and happening. Did a mini one myself. But now we're finally, I think once you hit $1 million for a card, a modern card even, you're going to see more of it. More people are interested in the modern players than the vintage players, because the modern players, they're on the news, they're on the highlights every day, I think. So I think it took a modern player card to sell for $1.8 million for these funds to really gain some traction. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, I agree with everything you just said. I just think that, when you think about your point about things can't go up in perpetuity is exactly right. The thing that gives me pause, because historically I've been very conservative. I've seen things, increase by a little bit, and then I would sell my cards. I would do that over and over again. And I'm so glad that about 5 years ago I said, no, I believe this fun thing is coming. I believe the prices are going to get crazy, and I'm going to stop selling. That was, if I've ever made a great decision in the card hobby, it was literally to stop selling my high-end cards, right? Now, the question that I ask, though, is every time one of these entities drops in and says, I've got $10 million that I can go spend, and that's, in the world of investments, that's just not a lot of money. But every time somebody comes in and says, I'm going to come spend $10 million, how does that influence, the market? And if it keeps happening, what happens to the really important cards? the point to be made here is, and I don't want to, I never want to tell people what to buy. I don't think it's excuse me. I don't think it's genuine of me to say you need to buy what you like and go buy these specific cards. I don't think I can say both of those things. I know I've said that to you before. I want people to go buy what they like, but when there are many of a card out there, I do think that when the music stops, it's really bad for that card. When there are fewer, and there's lots of people who are really after that small group, lots of people who just want to own it, just to own the thing. They want to just have that thing. It's not about buying and selling. It's not about treating it like a stock, but they want to be the end user of it. That sort of card, I personally feel like is more protected in the long term. I could be totally wrong about that. That's just my philosophy and what's driven my decision making.
Well, I don't think you're wrong, because you earlier in the show already tonight mentioned a case that supports what you're saying, and that was the Mahomes rookie, right? I mean, it's funny. I said it to our friend in common, Chris McGill from House of Jordans and Card Ladder. I said, the best time to sell a card is going into a season or going into the playoffs, because that's when everyone has hopes for everybody. Going into the new season, everyone has high hopes for all the players on their favorite teams or all their favorite players. Going into the playoffs, everyone has high hopes that their favorite teams and favorite players are going to win a championship. Everyone's hyped up. So you go through the playoffs and you win the Super Bowl. In the case of Mahomes, all of a sudden he's won the Super Bowl, and people think, oh, the card has to go up. He won the Super Bowl. Well, sorry, guys, it's actually It's backwards. And it was proven with that case that everybody thought it. Everybody, the term everybody loosely, everybody that had that card that wanted to sell it or bought it for a flip when he won, they all go to sell it. All of a sudden, eBay goes from having 1 or 2 copies to 40 or 50 copies. So like you said, the supply goes up right there. So it's never easy to know when to buy a card. We all suffer from a little bit of the FOMO, fear of missing out, whether we admit it or not. I think we all suffer from that a little bit. And that's maybe what drives some of our purchasing decisions. I want to move into, and this is what we're talking about. I want to move into our discussion about rare cards versus commodity cards, and just dive into that a little bit deeper. And you're such a good person to talk about that with, because you're deep in the corner of rare cards. Commodity cards don't interest you, but commodity cards are still very interesting in the market. But before we get to that, I want to say good evening to Andy Greenham. Welcome back to you, sir. Thanks for letting me know who you are. Yam corrects me and says exquisite RPAs come out of Upper Deck Ice. And Yam, I knew that. I thought you were talking about the exquisite version of hockey cards being the cup. When you said that, I didn't mean you actually. I didn't realize you actually meant exquisite. But thank you for clarifying. So here's a question I want to talk about, because Jordan asked this question about 12 minutes ago, Adam, and as Yam confirms, it's a great question. So let's read this one. He says, can you and Adam talk about the potential responsibility, and I like the word potential, the potential responsibility of elite collectors that they have to serve the hobby as a whole versus being self-serving, and then hashtag for the hobby, which is also the name of Jordan's podcast. So, I mean, that's a great question. And why don't you take a stab at it first, Adam?
I love the question. Jordan has a whole Instagram account and podcasts that are dedicated to this sort of idea. So I've been a member of the community for 30 years. I love saying that because I'm in my 30s still. So you basically know that I've been here for the whole of it. I think there's a lot of people in every industry and in every walk of life who are here who don't really give thought to how they leave the place when they leave it. And there's certainly people who are in our community today who have this feeling about making as much money as they can and then getting out. And I think there's probably times in my history where I don't think I ever thought I was going to get out, but there were times where all I cared about was making money, right? You've got to leave where you got, like, when you move homes, you should be leaving your neighborhood better than you found it. When you go to your university, you should be leaving it a better place than when you were there. I think it's our job as people in the hobby to always be asking the question, what is good for the hobby and what's not. And I think it's really hard to know. It's not, I'm talking in really altruistic ways right now, but like, it's hard to know always what things are good and what things are bad. But in some cases, it's not hard to tell. In some cases, what you're doing is good. And in some cases, what you or other people are doing are bad. And so what I would say to Jordan is, I think, and I think Jordan, I know Jordan has a desire to sort of make other people happy. He sent me a card for free that he knew I would appreciate. And it wasn't a high dollar card or anything like that, but he just wanted to try to make my life better, and he succeeded. That's why the relationship part of this is so important. That's why sharing information is so important. That's why doing a show like you're doing, Jeremy, or like so many of the content creators is so important. The thing that's so hard, and I think this is part of what Jordan's getting at, is it's not always easy to tell what people's intention is, or what their intentions are. Sometimes these shows or things like this can become so self-serving. They can become about trying to create value in the cards that you own. And, I've been tempted by that before. It's easy to talk about things that you own in a way where you want to get people hyped up about it, so then you can turn around and sell it someday. I think I could go on and on about this for an hour, but we don't have that sort of time. But I think it's a great question, Jordan. I think we need to take that responsibility. I think there's plenty of people, Jordan, who will never, ever take that responsibility, but all of us kind of have to look at ourselves in the mirror and ask, what we're doing to make wherever we are in life a better place than when we got there.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I mean, I think it's an interesting question. I think that, there are collectors at every level: the elite, the less than elite, the average, and the economy collector, let's say, or the budget collector. And throughout all levels of collecting, you've got guys that are out there showing their cards all the time because they like to show them. And then you've got guys that you don't even know about. They're private. They don't want anybody to know what they're doing. It's their personal hobby that they're just, it's what they enjoy. So I think that on the one hand, I agree with Jordan's his sort of the assertion that underlies the question that, elite collectors should give back something. What does give back mean? I don't know. Maybe it's be more public. Maybe it's go on shows. Maybe it's post on Instagram. Maybe it's share their wares. And we know elite collectors that do that. But I also think that, that just because you're a collector that has, spends millions of dollars a year on cards, I don't think you necessarily owe anybody anything. I mean, you've obviously put so much money into the hobby. That right there is supplying the hobby with more capital, it's just going to make the hobby world go round a little bit longer. So while I understand the assertion, and I think it's a nice feeling to have, and it provides that kind of, the hobby's a nice, happy place, which it is among those of us that are happy in it. It's an interesting question. I want to think about it a little bit more, but I don't consider myself an elite collector. I consider myself maybe slightly above average in terms of what I have in my collection. But in terms of giving back, like even right now doing the show, bringing people to the audience, sharing information, it's weird. I've never thought of that as serving the hobby. I realize it is now, but I never, just because people have told me, I never really set out to do that. So it's an interesting question. I'd like to turn it around on myself, turn it around on you.
Well, I'll just point out, I think about the question, I think a little bit different than you did, or than you do. I don't think you have to be public in how you trade or in how you, or in even doing a show. There's lots of ways to make the world better, right? And we don't all have to do it in the same way. The way that I do it is certainly different than how most people do it. And I think that's good. If we all tried to do it the same way, that would probably not work. But let's give the example of when you and I first met, right? You came up to me at the National and you were like, Adam, I'm Jeremy. We're on this group together. Let's talk. And you and I had this awesome, like, I don't know, 20-minute sort of like together sort of moment. And I was like, I really like Jeremy. You didn't have to do anything other than sort of have that moment with me. And you made my hobby experience better, right? Sometimes it's interacting. Sometimes it's teaching. Sometimes it's, I mean, there's a million ways in the world to sort of make it better. But I think what Jordan's getting at is like, you can sort of like take the land and destroy it and just take all of the nutrients and all the good things out just for yourself. Or you can sort of try to make it better along the way. And I think there's a lot of different ways to do that. And I think that those people who have the sort of loudest voices in the hobby need to really take the opportunity to try to make it better. And I do think it's a responsibility. But how much time they put into that, your point honestly about like, they've given money to it, you know, what more responsibility they have? I don't know. That's a hard thing, but I think that everybody should be able to answer and say, I didn't just take from it. I also sort of tried to make it a better place, however they're going to do that.
Yeah. And you know, it's funny because like, you know, I love the hobby. That's no secret to my friends in the hobby, the audience of the show. And I think, you know, just by doing the show is bringing a lot of things to light. And in a way, it's, you know, it's been my way of giving back, even though I didn't set out to do that at the beginning. It just has turned into that. And, you know, as for other people, yeah, like you said, we all give in our own ways. You know, there's different ways you can make the world a better place. And we had a show recently where I was talking about, you know, kids in the hobby, young kids. If you're set up at a card show and a kid comes by your booth with his ratty lunchbox filled with cards, and he says, "Are you buying?" I said, the answer to that question when a kid comes to your booth and asks if you're buying or you want to see his cards, the answer is always yes. It's never no. It's always yes. It doesn't matter what the kid's got. You always say yes to the kid because that kid had a bunch of no's along the way, and now someone finally wants to see their card. That's been my way of giving back or making the hobby a better place and trying to make the world a better place. And so I don't know. That's something I'm a big fan of, that reaction. So. But great topic, Jordan. Thank you so much for the question. Let's move along back into the market here. I'm guessing this is Andy. He says, I hear a lot of people navigating the current dips by holding sales for the start of the season. Do you think we will see a further dip instead of a recovery due to the impending supply? I'm going to take that one first because it ties into something I was just saying, which was, you know, the best time to sell a card is leading into the hype, leading into the season, leading into the playoffs. So I think that, but this is a great question because if people are now holding and they've caught on to that, well, you know, we may not see either a big increase or a decrease because while the supply is going to go up, we're going to see more supply on eBay, for example. We're going to see more people wanting to buy because it's also the most fun time to buy when there's the most hope for your player. So great question. I don't think it's going to have much of an effect at all. And, you know, open for discussion. I say that non-committedly. What do you think, Adam?
I think it's a great question too, and I like your answer a lot, Jeremy. I just think it depends on what seller's behavior is. We're dealing with a thinly traded asset, and so if a lot of people go out there and provide those cards for sale, you're exactly right that this is what could happen. But maybe that won't happen, and it'll be the best time to sell. I've never had a good sense of what people will do, and if you can figure that out, you can probably tie down that part of the equation. But I don't know what people will do. So good question.
All right, let's move along. Axonite64, welcome to the show. This is an interesting question. He says, I think we have two different markets. It's not so much a question as a statement. I think we have two different markets, the high-end rookie cards and the rest of the cards. Those two markets will not evolve the same way. One is sustainable, the other probably not. I'll tell you, you're pointing like that, Adam. I was doing the same thing in my head. I'm like, this might be the best way I've seen it articulated or heard it articulated recently. What's your response to this?
Yeah, so I think he's exactly right. When I mentioned earlier that it depends on segment and we need to look at things by segment, this is exactly what I'm talking about. Like, okay. I don't look at, the biggest mistake you can make is to lump everything together, right? And say, the market is doing this or it's doing that. And we kind of have to do it when we're on a show because we're talking about lots of different things. So the way that you're asking the question, Jeremy, I think is right. But the way that a prudent, smart buyer looks at it, you have to break it down and say, is this a rare asset? Is this a common asset? And what we found is, let's be real, over the course of the last few years, the more common assets have appreciated more on a percentage basis by a lot, by a ton. And so it's not fair to say, I would be totally disingenuous if I just said, it's always better to own the rare thing. No, you know what? If I wanted to make a lot of money, I'd go back in time and buy the not rare thing. But yeah, that's exactly right. Break it into different segments. Think about things in different ways, and I think that's what leads you to the best spot. Do you kind of agree with that, Jeremy, or you think I'm off?
Yeah, no, I do agree. The thing that comes to mind for me is that, like you said, if you were to buy the more common card, the commodity card, so let's use an example, the LeBron James Topps Chrome rookie card versus the LeBron James RPA. You would have made more money putting, $100,000 into his Topps Chrome card, all grading, consider them all graded, gem, PSA 10s, whatever. You would have made more money putting $100,000 into Topps Chrome LeBron James than you would have putting $100,000 into LeBron James exquisite RPAs. I think I may be off on that, but that's the gist of the example. The reason why you can make more money or the market will go up more for the lower end cards is because the pool of people that can afford it is so much higher. I call it natural attrition. As you get higher and higher in price, there's attrition as to how many people can actually afford and are in the market for that card. So there's less competition between those players to get that card. So I think you'll always see rare cards being worth more, but the rate at which they're worth more will sort of be decreased as time goes by. As you get higher and higher, the gap becomes closer and closer. It's still far apart, but a little bit closer and closer just because of the demand. It's simple. It all comes down to supply and demand. So that's my thoughts on that. I hope I did. I don't love the way I articulated that, but I think I got my point across or my thought across. Let's move along. Peter says, for that Mahomes example, is it the auction prices that drop, but did higher buy it nows still go? I.e., did all the cards go, but a few buyers still purchased out the available stock? I wasn't watching it. Were you?
No, and I used it more as hearsay, more as other people who have talked about it. It's the kind of a well-known example, but Peter's exactly right. You've got to not only look at segments, but you've got to look at types of sells, and it's really hard to tell what real sells are. And there's a reason why sales history is extremely problematic. But Peter's asking a really good question.
Yeah. I want to say hello to the card collector. Welcome to the show again. A couple questions here. They're off topic, so we are going to skip them, guys. I apologize. Brent Turman says, Adam, why do you think the principles of scarcity have not driven hockey prices like it has with basketball?
Wow.
Now, Brent, you are asking a guy who doesn't follow the hockey market. He follows you're like 100% a basketball guy.
I am 100% basketball, but I'll offer a few ideas.
Awesome.
I think that the one thing that I've seen for sure, Brent, is that the Asian market has had a tremendous impact on basketball. I don't know what the Asian market is like for hockey, but I can't imagine it's anything like it is for basketball. I think I would probably just need to know more about hockey to tell you any more than that. But for sure, the worldwide demand, especially from places that have a lot of money for the really rare, iconic pieces, have absolutely driven the prices sky high for rare basketball cards.
Cool. And I'll echo that sentiment, Brent. Basically, it's the size of the market. When we had on Jeremy Murray, who's the VP of grading at Beckett Grading, he shared some numbers with us. He shared that the rate of submissions by sport in the first half of 2020, 40% of all submissions are basketball, 8% of all submissions are hockey. So the basketball market, that's a good indicator of the size of the markets. You can go on eBay and look at total listings by sport too. That's another good measure. But to me, that tells me that, the basketball market is 5 times the size of the hockey market. And so maybe the highest end basketball cards should sell for 5 times the amount of the highest end hockey cards. Well, I can tell you, they sell for more like 15 to 20 times the amount, 10 to 15 times the amount. So I think, hockey, there could be some opportunities on a relative basis. So, but thanks for the question, Brent. Really interesting. Let's move along. Say my name. Speaking of the Asian market, say my name. Writing in from the Philippines, Filipino from the United Arab Emirates. Welcome to the show. He says the 75th anniversary of the NBA is in 2021. What is the likelihood of 90s cards rising in value, I assume? What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's a good question, not specifically for 90s cards, but for anybody who will be part of the likely 75th anniversary team. In 1996, when we had the NBA's greatest 50 team, it's really like a year that a lot of us remember as being really important. And, a lot of us can tell you off the top of our heads kind of who the top 50 were. And it introduced us to players like George Mikan and Paul Arizin and, guys like Jerry West and Wilt Chamberlain, more well-known guys and guys that maybe weren't as well-known. I know a lot of people who have, like I say, a Paul Arizin card in their collection only because he was a member of the top 50. So guys in the 90s or before that who are going to be named to that 75th team are going to see attention that they haven't seen for a little while. And that absolutely can have an impact. I think that's probably partly why we've seen some of the boom in the rare or the high grade vintage basketball market that we've seen in the last over the last few months. Is I think there are people who are finally sort of starting to look towards that, knowing that some of those guys are going to be highlighted, and they haven't been highlighted really since 1996.
Yeah, I wonder if it'll have a similar impact that The Last Dance did, just shining such a light on some of these players that really were shining in the 90s. So if that's any indication, then I think the answer is yes. There is likelihood that cards that are represented by those guys will rise. I like this. Jake says to say yes, 90s basketball cards are king, which I got to somewhat agree with. I like a lot of the current decade or the decade we just finished, the cards from there as well. But let's move along. Big Daddy Cool, welcome to the show, says, as the collection gets up there, the less people that know about it, the better. Love displaying it at Christmas time, but then the big boys go right back to the box in the bank. Fair. And it's true. When it's not like holding stocks of companies that you just look at on your screen every day to see how they're doing. These are actual tangible assets that we have physical ownership of. Security over these things is of utmost importance. And I have a feeling it's overlooked by a lot of people. Just a feeling. Let's keep going. Jordan says 100% to Adam. And the beauty is that you can have a strong land grab and still be generous, kind, and a great hobbyist along the way. That wraps it up right there. Very well said, Jordan. I might lead with that when you're on my show in a couple weeks here, Jordan, or a week from now, actually. Maybe I'll lead with that quote if I can find it again. Here's my good friend Karn. Karn welcome, says typically the hype is before the season. I'm predicting a flip of the situation this season. So that's exactly what I've observed over the last 20 years in the hobby. Typically the hype is before the season, and then it comes up again leading into the playoffs for those teams that are going to be in the playoffs. He's predicting a flip. That's very contrarian. I love it. I can't wait to see what happens. Paul said, oh, never mind that. Not important for the topic for the discussion. Jake says, yeah, there's lots of ways to get back to the hobby and be a positive influence in all your hobby interactions. Gary V preaches to give more than you take. 51-49% split. I love that. Gary V spreads a lot of positive energy out there, but I've never heard the 51-49 split. But I got to say, I really like it because 49 is still a healthy number. It's not that far from 51, but you are tipping the scales on the side of giving. And really, that's what the hobby's about. It's, my dad always says to me, he's like, you gotta give. You can't just always take. Not that he's accusing me of always taking, but it's just kind of how I've been brought up over the last few decades is, you want to give. You want to give. We all take all the time. but giving is really where you can make a great difference, I believe. So thanks for that, Jake. Say My Name says, I like the quote. The only thing that benefits that more is the hobby itself. Adam, please speak up.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, for Jake to quote, that's interesting because Jake's not a 51-49 guy. Jake's like a 99-1 guy. He gives and he gives and he gives and he gives. And I think it's good for him to say that. I don't really know a lot about Gary, and so I wouldn't comment on him. But what I would say is, like, if you're not expecting something back, but you're just somebody who's a giver, and like I would say Jake is, that makes the hobby a lot better place. When I was writing my first copy of the magazine, I reached out to a few people who I knew were really, really passionate people in the hobby. That's what the magazine's really all about. I reached out to Jake to write something because he has passion for the hobby. And I think we frankly just need more people like him.
Yeah. Speaking of Jake, I watched him on Beckett Live Presents with Eric Norton. I think it was just yesterday. And I knew he was a basketball card guy, but I didn't know that I didn't know you were like an expert at every set from the 90s that came out in basketball. What a resource you are. And when I saw the first issue of the magazine, I saw that Jake had written the article, and I read it, and I'm like, wow, this guy knows what he's talking about. What a wealth of knowledge. And then it really hit home for me when I saw him last night. So on Eric's Beckett Live Presents show. So that was he writes, "You're making me blush." Yeah, man, blush away. You deserve it. Okay, let's keep on going through some of these comments here. This one says, in regards to the market on high-end cards dropping, please keep this in mind. When the cops raid the whorehouse, good girls go to the jail along with the bad. So I think he's, which is basically, so all cards will drop with the tide. I wonder if that's 100% accurate or not. Like, there's different, and it ties into the comments a few minutes ago about the different segments, right? They could fare differently. So will they all drop, or will the truly rare not drop because they're truly rare? And if there's one thing that anyone with experience in the hobby will tell you, the rare always wins out. Will you have any response to this?
Yeah, I think he's asking a great question. The thing that I would say is, if you look back at history and you can say that some of those more mass-produced cards have 6x'd in a time, whereas the rare card has gone up, 2x, you could probably guess that if you have this moment where things fall apart, they're not going to fall apart at an equal rate. They're going to probably fall apart in the same sort of percentage that they increased.
Yeah.
That's not perfect. I don't think that's perfect, because I personally think it would even be less than that for the high-end card. I think that the trajectory of every piece of data that I've ever seen indicates to me that the rare thing is the thing that just has the better future. But again, that's not perfect. But I wouldn't expect them to both drop by 50%, or I wouldn't expect them to both drop by 90%. I would expect the thing that is easily available to drop at a higher rate than the rare thing.
And you said it's not perfect. Here's an example of where it's not perfect, because we know that there's such a small pool of people that are owning the biggest cards in the hobby. We know one guy that owns 3 of the biggest cards in the hobby, right? Just by virtue of an Instagram account. If a few of those people come upon financial hardship, all those cards are going to hit the market. Many of those cards are going to, if they need to convert those cards to cash. So the economy, the greater economy, does have an influence on these things too. But I agree with what you're saying, Adam. It's not perfect. And the rate of de-escalation will mirror somewhat the rate of escalation of the values that we've seen in the last 5 months, let's call it. At least a more similar pattern down that we saw going up.
Let me also add to that. I think if you were to say, let's say the economy falls apart, who's more likely to need that cash? Is it going to be the person who's been out there spending five figures on pieces of cardboard? Or is it going to be in cardboard that they anticipated that they would own forever? Or is it more likely going to be the person who has put together a collection of lower end, higher quantity cards available? I think maybe I'm wrong, but I think that the person who has the collection of cards who really needs that $50 is way more likely to have to move their cards than the guy who's been buying the huge pieces. That's not going to be perfect again, but I think more likely is probably the right way to describe it.
I think you're right. When we see it, I've seen it all the time with collectors putting together a collection and then the whole thing goes up for sale. And then you see them 6 months later, they're back in the hobby, they put together a collection, then they sell it all again. And, and it's a lot of it has to do with just interests changing. And a lot of it, the other reason it happens is because of financial requirements and that. So let's move along here. And this, Paul just says, I work with, I talk to people from the Philippines and have had many conversations about basketball. So speaking to the Asian market again, thanks for that, Paul. Colin Smith, hello and good evening to you. Absolute, good evening to you as always. Hope you're having a great night too. Card currency in the house. Any thoughts on if you think Dream Team cards will have a big rise? I mean, that team has gotten so much credit for basketball being global. I mean, has that not been happening already?
I mean, they're highly followed. One of my very favorite cards is a Dream Team card. I think is it going to keep? Are they going to keep increasing at a disproportionate rate? Probably not. I don't really know, but they are very popular.
Yeah. Alex says, all this giving talk, Jeremy, can I have 51% of the cards in your inventory? That's a great on point. Yeah, just send me your address again and I'll ship those out to you. No problem at all. Here, 90s B-ball cards has just been exposed. You're not 51.49, but a 99.1. That's about as good as it gets, right? You need that one to eat and have a roof over your head. McDoyle Sports, welcome to the show, says, not accurate as scarcity will continue to create demand. I've continued to purchase during a number of downturns. I don't disagree with that at all. I don't know what you were saying is not accurate. A lot of what we're saying tonight is speculation and thinking on the fly, but I certainly agree with what you're saying there. Karn, welcome, says, rare cards, in my opinion, are innately safer by nature, less liquidity on the market, less comps, less availability on the market. Truly rare cards drop only if the owners sell during that market shift. That's right. They only drop if owners sell. If a one of one doesn't get listed, it can't go down in value, right? It's stuck where it is. And that's another thing. In order for a card to go up in value, it has to sell, right? You can't say to yourself, oh, I should have sold this card. I should have sold my card now. Or I wish I didn't sell my card last year for 20,000. It just sold for 40,000. Well, if you didn't sell your card last year for 20,000, it might not have sold for 40,000 this time. You were better off letting someone else sell it and waiting for that and then selling. But then you have the issue where, well, maybe things go down. I should have got 20. Now it's only going for 15. So we're always trying to time things correctly. If you're in the buying and selling game, I don't do a ton of selling of my big personal collection cards, so I don't really play that game. But great point, Karn. Appreciate it. Adam, anything to add to that?
No, I think that these are smart people you've got watching the show, and I think that even the minor disagreements that we have are mostly they're mostly guesswork. We just do the best that we can.
Well, I'll give a shout out for Karn. Karn was my guest on, I believe, episode 6, really early on. So Karn, thanks for joining me back then. And he runs a Facebook group and an Instagram account called The Big Three and showcases some of the finest cards in the market. He actually, he put it on his Instagram, but he was the one who just purchased the BGS 10 LeBron James Topps Chrome rookie from Golden Auction. So he added that to his collection just 2 days ago. So congratulations to you, Karn, on that, and welcome to the show. Ziggy No, welcome to the show. Thank you. Another great show. Learning. Glad to have you. Glad you're learning, guys. Ziggy No has another channel called Ziggy No, where he does daily updates on the hobby, among other things. So check that out. You're welcome. They're on their way. Jump in, Adam, please.
Semi-embarrassing, but I need to run to the bathroom real quick. Can I come back?
All right.
Okay, one second.
I'll carry the show. I've got a little bit of practice with that by now. Let's see what we have here. The people with the most to lose aren't the top 1%. That's for sure. I agree with that comment. I like this Adam guest. Very well spoken, humble guy who knows his stuff. Yeah, I can tell you guys, Adam, when he joined me back, what episode he was on with me? I wrote this down somewhere. Episode 26 back in July, Adam joined me, and I got such great feedback from him as a guest. So many of you guys, the watching, really liked him, and I do too. Like he said, I approached him at the National last year, and we hit it off immediately. Just a really nice guy, knows his stuff, great cards, and is always sharing his knowledge and information. And now he's producing this new magazine, which we are going to get to and talk about. I want to give him some props on the new magazine, so we will get there. Karin says, thanks for the shout out, Jeremy. Listen every week on my nightly jogs. Well, that's nice to hear, Karin. I'm glad that you do. I'm glad that you do. He doesn't take little sips like you, Jared. That must be Andy. Yeah, thanks, Andy. Andy critiques me on how I drink my water during the show, but I only bring one glass down, so little sips to get me through. I'm going to take one right now. Hopefully Adam will be back in a moment here. But while we're waiting for Adam, that was a bigger sip than you've ever seen me take, Andy. Mike says, anything planned for episode 50, for the big 50 episode that is? Episode 50 is coming up. Nothing. Well, the big thing that's planned is that my guest is Jordan Hagedorn for that episode. It just happened to be the episode that I scheduled him in on. And, Jordan he's a Brett Favre super collector. He is an NFL agent. The guy's going to have some insights, and it'll be a fun episode. I'm looking forward to it. Other than that, nothing big really planned, though, just to have another great show. But thanks for asking. And as he says, hit the thumbs up and like this video. Always appreciate that. Thank you so much. Welcome back, Adam. Okay. Let's move on, because we're at the end of the comments for the first time in the evening. We've covered like 30% of the items that are on the agenda, and we're down to, if we're going to do 2 hours, we're already an hour 16 minutes here, so we're running short on time. Let's have a quicker discussion that I had originally planned to have on market capitalization and what it means in the hobby. Now, before we get into the discussion, in issue 1 of the basketball card Fanatic, this magazine right here that I printed off in color, just so I could, I want to read a magazine on, in bed or, when I'm doing my business, whatever, I read the magazine. The final article in this magazine is actually written by Adam, and it's called a rookie market cap. Well, a rookie market cap comparison: LeBron, Kobe, and Michael Jordan. Why don't you tell us, Adam? I mean, I read the article. Can you just give a Cole's Notes version? And this is your opportunity now also, Adam, to give a little peek to anyone out there who didn't receive that issue number 1 into what they can expect from this magazine. But please speak to this article in particular and what your findings showed.
Well, let me start out by saying that part of what I love about Basketball Card Fanatic is it gives me a chance to do projects that I've just been thinking about, things that I've thought would be interesting to study, and then to share the things that I found with the hobby. And so, I put this idea out there and let the world know that I'd love to send the magazine to anybody, for the first issue, to anybody who wanted to receive it. And I requested emails, and I had a good number of people reach out. And as I did that, the first thing that I did was it's something I was talking to some friends about for a long time. I wanted to try to really do an all-inclusive market cap on all of the graded BGS cards, BGS rookie cards from those 3 greats. And so I said, I'm going to do everything I can to come up with the very best valuation for all of these cards, all of their grades. And I just want to see what happens. My belief at the beginning was that LeBron James' market cap for his rookies was going to be higher than people would think. But the thing that I found was as I did it, was that LeBron's market rookie cap or market cap for his rookie cards was way higher. His LeBron James market cap for his rookie cards for Beckett graded cards is almost 2x Kobe and Jordan's rookies combined. And that to me was really interesting.
Before you go any further, explain market cap just to be certain.
That's a good call. And I do that in the article. It's why you write things sometimes rather than talk about them, because it's easier to sort of explain everything that needs to be explained. But market cap is a metric that those of us who invest are really familiar with. It represents basically the total value of an entity. So if you say how many shares of a stock are outstanding, and then what's the value of that stock, and you multiply those two things by each other, that gives you basically the value of the company. That's the market cap of a company. And so in terms of cards, what you can do, if you've got a card that is limited or numbered in some way, you can figure out what the market cap is. Or in the case of a graded card, you can take its population and you can create based on what if you take the price or the value, sales value of what an individual card is worth, and then multiply it by the quantity of that card in that grade, you can get that market cap for a specific grade. But that only tells you what the market cap for that specific grade is. My job was to say, okay, if I take all of the Jordan rookies in existence, and I took everything from 84 to 86, the star, the Fleer sticker, all of the different star things, everything that you could construe as a rookie card, I took all of that. And then I did that for all of the Kobe's. I did that for all the Kobe inserts, all the parallels. I did the same thing for LeBron. And the goal was to say, what is the total value of all BGS graded cards for Michael Jordan's rookies? What's the total value, again, of all of Kobe Bryant? And then just to compare the three. And that's the purpose of the article, is to sort of see what happened when I did that.
So what did you find?
What I found is if you add the Kobe and the Jordan together, you only get to about half of what LeBron's total market cap is. And to me, that was basically the find. That's what I wanted to discover. And now the next question that comes from that, obviously, is, should it be that way? And I think that's a really hard question because, unfortunately, not all rookie cards are created equal. I found that if you just look at just individual cards, Michael Jordan's Fleer rookie graded by BGS is easily the highest market cap. And then I have broken out in the article. In fact, I'll open it real quick here.
I'm going to bring it up on the screen.
I have it printed.
Oh.
So the Jordan 86 Fleer, the estimated BGS market cap that I came up with is $78 million. That's across all grades. It's a $78 million asset. Whereas LeBron's Chrome, which is number 2, was a $41 million asset. There you go. That's it right there. And so as far as individual cards go, Jordan's still king. But when you add them together, it doesn't end up being particularly close. LeBron's market cap is up $295 million. And Jordan's total market cap is $102 million. Yep, that's that right there. So, and Kobe's is, this is the really shocking thing to me, is Kobe was half of what Jordan is, and 1/6 of what LeBron is. And that just, that was really surprising to me.
Yeah, I think it comes down to what you said. Not all rookie cards are created equal. But what I do like to see is that at the top of this list, Michael Jordan's number 1 by a long shot. And that's a function of the population of the card, as well as just, compare the population of the cards below it as well. So interesting stuff, man. And a great sort of a segue maybe into talking a bit more about the magazine itself. So let's jump into that. I mean, I did want to expand the discussion on market capitalization a little bit more. And I'm going to actually, before we move on, I'm just going to add a couple of points. One is that, market capitalization is a term used in the financial markets. It's like Adam said, shares times share value gives you the market value of any company. And it's usually unrelated to what the company's actually really doing. It goes up and down almost as faster than sports cards go up and down. It goes up and down as, every time news comes out. But there are other kind of analogies that we can draw from that. One is the effect of dilution, right? When a company issues more stock from treasury or warrants and options are exercised, there's more dilution. There's now more shares, but nothing else changed except the company's been cut up into smaller pieces of pie. And the way I look at it for the sports cards market is that we experience dilution in sports cards as more cards are graded, because we're only talking about graded cards. You can't talk about ungraded cards because we don't know what the populations are. I know we can for numbered cards and all that, and for those ones, it's a bit different. But we experience dilution as well in the hobby. which is an interesting thing. Another kind of topic in this is the question of the efficient market theory, which basically says that there are no angles. Stocks are priced at what they're going to be priced at because all information is known except for insider information. But even as soon as that leaks, you can't get ahead of the game because it's factored into the price almost instantly. That's the efficient market theory. And I wonder, the question came up earlier today as someone posted on one of my promos of the show with you tonight, Adam. They basically made the comment that it's not an efficient market in the hobby. And I'm not sure about that, but I think there are efficiencies in it because we see it on eBay. Guy goes out and scores 50 points in a basketball game. All of a sudden his cards are up through the roof, bull, that kind of thing. And then you don't do so well and the cards come down in value. So there are efficiencies, but there are inefficiencies as well. Adam, please jump in, make any comments, and let's move on.
Yeah, so I think that everything you just said is super smart. I think that I do think it's a super inefficient market, but I think that it's inefficient in the short term. I think in the long term, people stop thinking about the potential that somebody has of going out and accomplishing something, and they just start buying the card because they want to own it. And so where you look at a guy like Kobe Bryant and a guy like Michael Jordan, people are buying those rookie cards in general because they want to own it, not as much for speculative reasons, right? LeBron is an interesting player because he's both speculative and one of the greatest of all time. And that's such a rare situation that you find yourself in. But the thing so the interesting thing about this that I want to make sure I get out there, I believe that what you said about, and what I led with which is that not all rookie cards are created equal. I just believe that's totally true. But I also believe that you can't just create more of something, more products, a greater quantity, different kinds, and then have this like always increasing potential market cap. I don't believe that's the way it should be. I think, the comparison that I would give here is, do you think the market cap of Ken Griffey Jr. rookies should be close to the market cap of Mickey Mantle rookies? Well, the Mickey Mantle rookies, way rare, blah, blah, blah. But like, which one should have a higher value? Now, LeBron is a little bit different because LeBron has autographs, right? And he has autograph patches. And that adds an element that like you have to acknowledge is different. But is 2x times the other two greats logical? Is that the way it really should be? Is it just because he has more cards? And then, okay, if we're willing to accept that, so then the companies should just make more cards because then in the end they will have a higher market cap? I actually don't believe it's true. I really don't. I believe that in the long term, it should make more sense than it does. I don't know how much weight to put on the autographs and that other segment, but I do not believe fundamentally that you can just create more of something and then it'll be worth more. That takes out of it that rarity matters. And I believe like rarity matters, like that in the long term is like one of the core principles here. So I think that this same graph in 10 years, if I'm still putting the magazine together, knock on wood, I think it'll be really interesting to run it again. And my guess is that they'll be closer. Now, I don't know if that means that LeBron James's will come down and the others will go up. And maybe I'm wrong, by the way. Maybe it'll just always be like this, and it's because there's autographs and these other segments that they hit. Like I'm open to that. But if I'm buying stuff, which I am, like I would lean towards the thing that I think is undervalued, and the market caps tell a pretty clear story on that. So that's my opinion. Having said that, I still have to go back to the whole buy what you like thing. And there's times where I'm like, oh man, I'd love to buy a LeBron rookie because I like LeBron and he's amazing. And so I get it. But at some point, he's not there anymore. And then you have to ask the question, what do I want? And should he really be worth twice as much as the other two greats combined? Again, I just don't think that's right.
Super interesting conversation. I mean, so many questions and comments came to mind as you went through that, but we're just gonna kind of move along because we could go on for 4 hours on this one topic for sure. Yeah, I hesitate to not say anything about it because in the interest of time, but we're just gonna move along. So Adam says, good evening, Jeremy. Adam, I'm a big fan of the podcast. How often do you plan on releasing issues of the magazine, or is it to be determined? Jump in, answer.
Thanks. Great name, Adam. And thanks for listening, and thanks for asking this question. The idea of the magazine is that it will be a monthly release. I believe that we'll be able to release on the second or third Saturday of every month. The October issue is coming along well. There are a number of people who have already written articles and who have submitted them to me for editing. The articles are largely me asking people at this point. I've had a few people who have said, hey, I'd love to do this, but for the most part, I've asked people to do it. As Jake will tell you, I asked him to do it. And yeah, they'll come out every month, man. And that's the goal. And I don't think there should be any problem with that.
Yeah, I could see you having to maybe take off December or 1 month a year for a break. But hey, man, even 11 issues a year is impressive. You know, I was going to save this for later, but you're doing the magazine now. You've got your podcasts, which you put out episodes once every couple weeks or so. I got to ask you, man, and I know what it's like creating content now. Have you bitten off more than you can chew? Are you going to be able to do 11 or 12 issues a year?
It's my favorite question that I've been asked, and I've been asked it by a couple of people who I care about. And who I think know me really well. You know, there was a time in my history where I spent so much time writing on blowout cards. I don't do that anymore. There have been so many different things that I've thought through the years, or things that I want to write or I want to produce. I love writing. I've always loved writing. I'm an accountant who loves to write, right? Go figure. But Jeremy, you know, like we actually do a lot more writing than a lot of people would guess. But I love writing, and I love writing about cards. I had a friend who's involved in the magazine ask me just 2 days ago, he's like, how long do you think you'll be able to come up with ideas for? And I'm like, dude, these ideas are never ending. These ideas will never like cease to enter my brain until I'm like no longer alive or have my faculties about me. I have 20 ideas of things that are interesting to study and research, and I have a real passion. So, you know, I've got to let it out somewhere. And how I've decided that I want to let it out is in the form of a podcast and in the form of a written magazine. But the thing about a podcast, and Jeremy, I think this will resonate with you. You can accomplish a lot of things with a podcast that you can't accomplish in something that's written. But the same thing is true in the other direction. You can't give everyone everything you'd like to in a magazine. Or like that you'd like to in a magazine, in a podcast. You can't give it. It doesn't work both ways, right? You have to have, like, there's 30 pages here, right? Like, this is long. This is mostly writing, and there's some pictures and stuff, but it's not filler. There's just a lot here. I could write this podcast that has all this info, or I could do a podcast. It would take hours and hours and hours and wouldn't be as consumable. So I love writing. I love the projects. I have to, I'm not somebody who wastes a lot of time. Like, I'm always working. If I'm not working, I'm doing something with my family that's meaningful, but I don't have other interests. Like, this is it for me. And so my wife would tell you sometimes that I've bitten off more than I can chew, but that's definitely my personality. So
are you pleased then with the content from issue number 1?
Dude, I loved issue number 1. I'll tell you, I had a good feeling that the things that I was writing, that those would turn out in a way that I felt good about. And I do feel good about them. But the thing that I felt best about was that I had 6 people write articles, and they're all great. They're all exceptional. And I've asked people, I've said, you know, tell me what your favorites were. I've had each of the 6 sort of given as answers. People like the different variety, right? The idea of the magazine, and I might as well just get to this now. I include a line in the first page, which basically says that I hope that the magazine accomplishes 3 things. I hope it makes you a smarter, happier collector with more of a long-term perspective on the hobby. And that is the idea of it. And when you think of me and you think of the Basketball Card Fanatic and the Basketball Card podcast, I want you to think of somebody who's more concerned with the long-term health of the hobby and your long-term sort of like interest in the hobby. So, you know, like as you guys open it, as you guys get the first issue, and by the way, if you still want the first issue, it's still available. DM me at TheReal27Guy or email me at basketballcardfanatic@gmail.com, and I will send you the issue for free. But it's, you know, I think as you read it, if you actually take time with it, kind of as Jeremy has talked about, like take time to read the things that are interesting to you, I think it will make you smarter and better. And we haven't even mentioned the indices, which I think should give people a different perspective on the health of the hobby that they haven't really considered before.
Yeah, and there's another analogy to the financial markets as well, right? It's nice to see that in there. And I just want to point out on page 9, there's this awesome little plug promotion, almost like an advertisement for Sports Cards Live, which was really nice. So I want to thank you for including that in issue number 1 of the magazine. It makes it that much more extra special for me. Okay, and there were people asking in the comments how they can get the magazine. Is it too late? Will you send it internationally? So let's run through some of these comments, because we're way behind in them, and a lot of them relate to the last topic of discussion. So let's run through some of these, Adams, and just see right now. So yeah, how do we get an issue? Adam's Instagram handle is right under his name, @TheReal27Guy. Go on Instagram, send him a direct message, and give him your email address. He will send it to you. Adam, one more time, please say out loud what your email address is so people can send you an email if they're not on Instagram.
basketballcardfanatic@gmail.com.
basketballcardfanatic@gmail.com. There you go, guys. I like this comment. Americans don't know Cole's notes. It's Cliff's notes. Yeah, up here we call them Cole's notes. You guys call them Cliff's notes. Anytime I say Cole's notes, I mean Cliff's notes. I thank you for making that comment. Cardboard Nostalgia says, is there an approximate number known for the amount of Jordan Fleer rookies that made it into packs? Same question for Gretzky. Short answer is no. There is not. Nobody knows. Simon says, sorry, I came in late. Will Fanatic's basketball magazine be available for international collectors and buyers? Yes, it will be. It's a digital magazine, so it's very, very transportable. So there you go, Simon. Hopefully you've even already sent Adam your email address so he can send it to you. Paul Cashman advises that I think that would be a final score. Miami won 112-109, which is what I predicted. You know, on Instagram stories now, people often say, who's going to win tonight? I'm pretty sure I picked Boston or Miami tonight. Peter says, curious when you talk about market cap comparison versus average cost per card, is the cap difference strictly a quantity question? I mean, the cap difference is really what all the cards, all the copies of that cards that exist, what they're all worth together. That's how much money the whole hobby is put into one card or one group of cards. I hope that answers the question.
Can I add something to that though?
Sure, but please make it quick.
Yeah, so I'll make it super fast. The thing that's interesting is, and I included a graph on this for Paul in the magazine. There's a graph that indicates the total number of cards that have been graded by Beckett. And so I'm looking at it. It doesn't have a quantity, but the graph shows that LeBron has a little bit more than 6,000, maybe about 6,600 or 66,000, 65,000. There you go, of cards that have been graded. And so it's not, you know, if you do an average value per card graded of LeBron James from his rookie card, he's still way higher, like way, way, way higher than these other guys.
Okay, interesting. Thank you. Let's keep on plugging through here. And Jordan Hagedorn kind of gives a response to that as well. Thank you for that, Jordan. Let's see what this says. I haven't read it yet. With the recent Giannis $1.8 million sale, maybe things have changed a little in the top 10. Also, since there are so many Zions out there, couldn't his market cap be a little inflated due to sheer number of cards? Yes, it could be. Also, if you would have evaluated Kobe before his death, his market cap would have been much lower. It would have been, but everybody else's market cap was much lower before Kobe's death as well, just because of function of really COVID more than anything. So great comment, though. Appreciate that one. Jordan says, also, the MJ rookie is one of the most popular cards ever made, maybe the most popular card ever made. Popular cards win on a daily basis. Rare, scarce cards win on the big dollars less often. Yeah, I get what you're saying, and I do agree. It's because they started making higher-end, more scarce, sought-after cards in 03. Take out LeBron Exquisite and the super high-end autos, and they would be much closer. Great point, right? And that speaks to what you said earlier, Adam, about, you know, nowadays they have patches and autographs. That's a whole new element. It's a whole new category, and more money goes into those. Let's keep on going. Jeff Johnson, welcome to the show. And I know we're 10 minutes behind the comments now. It says, great show. Thank you. Please say hello to my former and very best employee at the LCS. Adam has matured into a great young man, very great man, father, husband, friend, knows a ton. We are all wise to listen to him. Couldn't agree with you more. Jeff, thank you for joining the show tonight. Carlos, welcome to you. Market efficiencies and market capitalization talk. Now we're talking my language. This is the content I signed up for. I'm glad you enjoy Carlos. And I'm sure we will have a very in-depth discussion about this later on, even possibly later on tonight, you and me. All right, let's keep going. Simon says, if Jordan had an NTRPA in his day or was as a current day rookie, it would be by far the biggest card in the hobby. Tough to argue that. Adam, this is something you might want to jump in on, eh?
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely right. I think, again, I still think the question is, if you did have an RPA, would his Flair rookie be as popular, right? Because when we compare the Jordan market cap on his 86 Flair, what's the number 2 card? It's the 2003 Chrome, and so the Chrome is still worth a ton, in spite of the fact that you've got all that other exquisite stuff, and that's the part that's really interesting to me. I just don't. That to me doesn't sort of fit in terms of like what I think should be. So,
yeah, it's a great question. I always think about it too in the context of hockey. If Wayne Gretzky had a cup rookie, which is, the exquisite rookie in hockey, if he had one, what would it be worth? Well, it's so hard to do because if he had one of those, then he would have to, then everybody back then would have had one, and who knows where we'd be today. But, it's still fun to think about. It's still a fun little thought experiment. If he had one, what would it be worth? You compare it in hockey, you compare it to what Crosby and McDavid sell for. In basketball, you compare it to what LeBron sells for, and now what Zion sells for, and Luka. What would the Jordan be worth? I would think it would be worth probably, 50% more than the LeBron. Maybe and that's where there's this ongoing debate in sports. Who's the GOAT? Is it Jordan or is it LeBron? Well, if the people that are really passionate about that wanted to speak with their wallet, that would be the ultimate opportunity to do so. If Jordan had a National Treasures RPA as well, or an exquisite RPA as well, because now they could actually fight and see who's worth more. That would be really interesting. Let's keep on going. Absolute says, can you quantify your market cap with some other key rookies, similar level athletes from the same eras, and see if that 2x holds true? I wonder. That's a question. We can't answer tonight, but maybe in a future episode or a future issue of the Basketball Card Fanatic, Adam might look at some other players and see if the theory holds. I think that's an amazing suggestion, actually, Mike. Good on you for it. And Adam, maybe take a note on that, but please jump in.
So yeah, and sorry, I know you're trying to wind down here, but the second issue, what I'm doing, and I teased this at the end of the first issue, but the second issue, what I'm doing is I'm asking some people in the hobby that I feel like are real experts to tell me what they believe are the 10 most iconic basketball cards, and I'm going to do a market cap on them. And what I'm interested to see is, is market cap really like the numerical way of defining how iconic an item is? And I kind of think the answer is yes. I kind of suppose that's the case, that the more iconic we consider something is actually the highest market cap that it has. And we'll find out in issue 2 whether that's the case. I haven't done the work on it yet, but yes, there's more to come on this market cap idea between all sorts of cards.
I think there's a lot more study needed to answer that because of the hobby, because of the difference in eras. It's so hard to compare, Michael Jordan to Wilt Chamberlain, or any guy, Wayne Gretzky to Gordie Howe, Sidney Crosby to Gordie Howe. Like, it's so hard to make those comparisons. Those comparisons are as hard to make in the card market for these players as well. So the challenge is there. Thomas Newman, welcome to the show. I'm not going to put your next comment on screen, but I see it in reference to blowout. Karn says, I understand what you're saying, Adam, regarding market cap. If MJ had more rookie cards that targeted towards a lower buy-in, would that add a new demographic in that market and more money? For example, the $500 LeBron James rookie. Yeah, I mean, that's just it, right? We can talk for a day on this stuff. So let's just keep on going, though. Chris West wonders what the Griffey Jr. market cap is. Yeah, so do I. Like, these are interesting things for sure. What was the email again? It is basketballcardfanatic@gmail.com. Anybody that wants issue number 1 of the Basketball Card Fanatic by email in PDF for free from Adam, send him an email at basketballcardfanatic@gmail.com. So many Griffies out there, but nothing in the tens of thousands even. Nothing really, but there are some that are coming close to 5 figures, some really rare 90s cards that are beautiful that I was watching that have sold for big money. But yeah. And then do you look at just the rookie cards, or do you look at all the cards? right? It's really up to you what you're trying to figure out. Lots of studies could come out of this, Adam. Lots of studies. There are likely a few million Ken Griffey Jr. rookie cards. Karn says, on the flip side, I think there may be a market issue bias towards buying lower grades. Less people want a BVG3 Jordan rookie than a BGS 95 LeBron, meaning BVG3 Jordans could be undervalued. Could be. So much to talk about. My gosh. Paul says there's 122,000 PSA BGS graded copies between the two. I think he's talking about the Ken Griffey Jr. That's a humongous number, bigger than I was expecting. Jordan says, definitely all interesting banter. The fact is the hobby's on fire and so much love and money to go around. Love and money to go around. I love it. Chris West just wants to let everybody know that Jordan is greater than LeBron. I agree. I know many don't.
I agree.
Simon says, does Adam consider Jordan 84 star card number 101 his true rookie?
Yeah, I would. I included it in the study. It's certainly a rookie card. I don't really, I think that the 86 Fleer rookie is a rookie. I know that it wasn't made, during his rookie year and all that sort of stuff, but it's the first thing that kind of came out of a pack, and so it's an incredibly important card. But and it's easily the one with the highest market cap. I think as I compared the market caps amongst all these guys, the Jordan XRC was something like 14th or 15th out of all three of these guys in terms of total market cap. So in terms of total value, it's actually pretty low on the list compared to some.
I'll just voice my opinion. I think it's I like the XRC designation that Beckett came up with back in the 90s or the 80s, 90s, whenever it was. I don't, because it wasn't mass, widely distributed, didn't come out of a pack, was issued in team sets. I think it's an XRC. I think the Fleer is the RC. But that said, I think the hobby in general is starting to accept cards like that as more towards the RC than the XRC, or at least more towards the RC, leaning away from the XRC designation. Another interesting topic. We had that conversation with Meat on After Hours on Saturday. We got into some heavy talk about what really is a rookie card. Have the cards that fall under the rookie card umbrella, are there more of them now than there used to be? Let's keep on going. Amazing show, just saw it. I love the science behind this. Glad you're enjoying the show. Absolute says, if we all had this access to data, content, and experienced people like Jeremy and Adam, the 90s cardboard bust might have not been so bad. That's an interesting point. If we had access to data, if we had the internet back then and we knew what was going on, if we had access to the people at the card companies and all this, right? It was so mysterious back then. So great comment. I wonder if it would have been. And this Facebook user says, Adam, keep it up. And we're at the end of the comments, which is a bit of a relief because I want to get to a couple more things before we do wrap up the show. We're down to about 12 minutes left. So I'm just going to go through my notes here. We talked about market cap, rare cards versus commodity cards. I think we didn't really touch on it in isolation, but we've covered it a lot. I think we should do a quick summary, though, about what we were thinking in terms of that. And the reason why I wanted to talk about it even at all is because Adam is like carrying the flag on this thing. I've seen him talk about it so many times that he only collects cards that are hard to find. That's what drives him in the hobby, is the chase and the hunt for a card. Whereas it's anyone on any day can go online and buy a Michael Jordan Fleer rookie. You can go online and buy a Kobe Bryant Topps Chrome, a Zion Williamson Prism, a Giannis Prism. You can go buy these cards any day you want, a LeBron Topps Chrome. But it's hard to find those rare pieces. And that's what really gets Adam's juices flowing in terms of the hobby. Adam, can you just say a few words about rare cards versus commodity cards?
Well, I think, if I'm to guess what your listeners are going to feel, my guess is most of them are in line. Most of them feel like the chase is a really important part of this. But to people who are more, I don't want to belittle people who collect things that are easy to find, because again, I think you should collect what you like. But what's more fun, finding the golden ticket or just finding the thing that just anybody could go get at any time? We all know the answer to this, right? That's why certain cards are so sought after, is because you can't find them and you go years without seeing them. If you were to look at my top 10 cards and say, okay, tell me why you like each of these, Tell me tell me why they're your top 10 cards. It's because most of them don't ever sell publicly. Like most of them haven't sold publicly in many years. That's what's fun. Once you find a card like that, you hold on to that card, because once you let it go, you never get it back, right? Having said that, that doesn't always mean that it's the best thing financially, but at least if everything falls apart, if our entire economy goes to nothing, if cards are worth nothing in the end, I'll have a bunch of stuff that I love that even if I wanted to go find them after they were worth nothing, no one would be able to find them.
You know, and you just said, you know, that you know, if we hit a financial crisis, sort of, well, we've had them before, but sorry, if you said that it may not be the most the best financial decision to buy the more rare card, but I think we have to keep in mind that it's still a hobby, right? We're still, though many of us are still collectors. We're collectors who are investors by default in this hobby. And that's the category I fall into. It's the category you fall into. Collector first, investor second. So, you know, even though it may not make the most financial sense, it may make the most sense in terms of just your enjoyment of the hobby, enjoyment of your life. So there's something to be said for that. The other thing about the commodity cards, as I refer to them as, is that they're also easier to sell. I think they're easier to sell because that's the nature of a commodity. There's always people looking for them. And the people that trade in the commodity cards recognize that it's easy to get, it's easy to sell. You can go in and out of them. You can day trade these things. And we're seeing a lot of day traders in the hobby right now that are looking for the what's hot now. And you see all sorts of videos we talk about all the time. You see all sorts of content out there. 5 cards you should buy before the season starts. I think I just saw a video titled that just today. So, you know, there's all sorts of ways to approach the hobby, collecting, investing, and all the hybrids throughout them. Let's get through more comments here. Jay welcomes is talking about XRCs. The Lou Alcindor XRC is the 1968 Mira Tudo Sport, which is funny because, you know, I prefer his Tall Boy Tops rookie. I don't even know what Mira Tudo Sport here, and I don't even care what it is because I can tell it's not a mainstream release. So it's still, I'm not saying it's not cool, but it's just not for me. I want a nice high grade or highest grade rare copy of a card that is iconic. And the Lou Alcindor Tall Boy is an iconic card in my mind.
So I would just jump in and say, I think you're right. I actually like the Mira Tudo Sport. In fact, I have a Wilt Chamberlain from that set, which is it's different because it's not an XRC. But this is why, you know, people will say, I've said this before, people will say when it comes to rarity and being iconic wins. And my argument to that is the Griffey Upper Deck rookie is maybe like one of the best known cards of all time. It's maybe one of the most iconic cards of all time. What you really want to do is you want to find a card that is both really rare and really iconic. And if you can find both of those things together, that's really what wins.
Yeah, 100%, man. Simon says, I'm super jealous of Adam. He has my all-time favorite card, the MJ, the Michael Jordan Medal Championship PMG. Amazing card. Yeah. So, and I've seen that card I think I got to hold that card in hand when I met you at the National last year, Adam. Okay, guys, this has been awesome. We're gonna whip off the Sports Cards Live 5 final questions right now. First question, Adam. I hope you have it handy. Favorite card in your personal collection?
Favorite card in my collection is my 1968 Topps Test Wilt Chamberlain.
Topps Test Wilt Chamberlain. Do you have it available to show?
I would have, but I'm filming from work, and I actually had to go. I went fishing with my family, and I didn't want to have that sort of thing in a difficult spot for people.
Yeah,
That is, it's the very first regulation size Topps Wilt Chamberlain card. It's the only Wilt Chamberlain Philadelphia 76er card, the only one, literally the only one ever made, and there's like 12 or 14 copies known to exist in the world. So
that's truly a rare piece. That's like a Honus Wagner type of card, right? Like it just probably not as valuable as it should be by now. Okay, next question. What is your highest priority attainable want card? A lot of people say, the typical question is, what's the number one card that you want to own? I want to know what's at the top of your list of cards that you are reasonably going to be able to attain in the semi-near future.
It's a hard question to answer because you don't want to tip people off to it. And rare cards are such where to let people know, it probably wouldn't be necessarily a good thing. But what I would just say is I have a couple of Kobe Bryant cards that I'm actively looking for that if I was to come across would be the ones that I would be most interested in acquiring.
And I respect that answer. I know it's a bit risky to answer it if you're someone who chases super rare cards. And hey, we've got people watching. You never want people to hold things hostage on you. Number three, what's your favorite place to buy cards?
My favorite place to buy cards is from people who have owned them, loved them, and so just directly buying from people who have owned them, loved them, but are ready to cash out and make a huge payday. That's the best. Some of my best cards are cards where people are like, I bought this for X, or my, so-and-so bought this card for X, and this is what, and, I don't know what it's worth now. Being able to go and be able to be like, hey, I'm going to make your day. I'm going to go make you a ton of money in this situation. That's always an amazing feeling.
Yeah, for sure, man. For sure. I hear you. I feel the same way, kind of in the opposite way though. When I sell a card, sometimes if it's a card that was once in my personal collection and I've like upgraded or something and I'm willing to sell it, and it's a card I've had for a long time, I'm going to screen you as a buyer before I'm going to sell it to you. I'm going to find out what kind of collection is it joining? What other cards are in this collection, So that's awesome. Okay, question 4. And this is the one that could take a while, so try and be as succinct as you can. If you could change one thing about the hobby, what would it be?
You warned me about this one beforehand. The thing that I'm just gonna be really honest here, and a lot of people aren't gonna like this. I care more about the rarity of a card and what's unique about it and what it stands for than I do about whether it has the most perfect edge or the most perfect corner. I choose rarity, true card rarity, over condition rarity 100 times out of 100. I should say 99 times out of 100. I have a couple of Wilt Chamberlains that I really like because of their condition. But I wish that people would think less about the specific details of the condition of a card and think more about what they actually know about the rarity of the card. I think if there's one thing that's overrated in the hobby today, it's how much of a premium people put on something because of what a grader thought, while they were having a good day or while they were having a bad day. We know, this is undoubtedly true. We know that cards will be sent into grading companies and graded differently based on the day. We know that. We know that the difference between a 9 and a 10 is really, really small. And sometimes it's 0. So I wish that people would kind of see that the same way that I see it, which is it doesn't really matter a lot. And that the actual, the idea of buy the card, not the grade. Credit to Logo Man Shark on Instagram, who used to post that all the time on Blowout. I think that's where I land too.
Yeah, I'll comment a little bit on that. So I think I have 2 thoughts. The first one is that condition is more important when you're talking about a commodity card, where there's thousands of them out there and available, and you want to set yourself apart. That's where condition is important. Second comment I'll make is that I'm with you though. I will choose owning a rare card over owning that has some issues with it over owning a common card that is gem mint condition. And I know it's, what are you comparing there? And where I learned that the first time I really even thought about it was when an elite collector we've already talked about tonight, Nat Turner, when in I think March of 2019, he purchased the PMG green. So from 1997 Fleer metal, I believe, the Precious Metal Gems green out of 10 Michael Jordan in a PSA authentic holder, where it was apparently the card was trimmed, and he still bought that card for $350,000 for a card that was trimmed. It wasn't even a PSA 1 or 2; it was a PSA authentic. And I thought and I saw him talk about it on Josh's Cardboard Chronicles, where he's just like, I had to have the card. I don't care I don't want it stepped on, rolled up and scrunched up and flattened out again. But I had to own one of the 10 copies. I know where 5 others are. I'm not going to get them. I had to own a copy of the card. I don't care about the condition. I don't even care that it's been trimmed. And I'll tell you, that really hit home with me because it opened my eyes to the idea of sometimes just owning the card that we covet is more important than the condition it's in, or even if it was altered along the way. I'm not saying I want to own altered cards, but sometimes, I do have an altered card. It's out of 2. I bought it not knowing it was altered. I sent it off to PSA. They wouldn't grade it because I said no qualifiers. Now I'm going to send it back and I'm going to allow it to be qualified. It had a touch up of color on the corner. It's an essential credentials Sidney Crosby out of 2. Well, I still want it in a slab, and I don't care that it's going to say PSA authentic on it. And I'll tell people, yeah, someone took a colored marker to it down here on the corner. I don't care it has a colored marker. I don't care it was touched up. I own the card that's out of 2, and that makes me happy.
I can't think of anything stupider than altering a card that's numbered to 2. And whoever did that, a total idiot. Like the only thing that matters on a card like that is that it exists and that you have it. Like, even if it's got a crease in it or whatever, guess what? There's only one more, right? So, and again, this is just my take, but I want the rare thing. Give me the rare thing. Even if it's you said, even if it's been crumpled up and flattened out again, I'd rather have that than have the thing that's easy to find. Because if there's only one of them or there's only 2 of them, that's the only way that I can sort of fill my set. So
if you think about a card that's been crumpled up and flattened again, look at the Honus Wagner PSA 1 that just sold for over $1 million. That thing looked like it was falling apart. So people are obviously going to spend money on the rarity.
Yeah, let me make one last point on this, and that goes back to the Wilt Chamberlain and why it's my favorite card. My Wilt Chamberlain 1968 Topps Test card. Let me tell you a few things about it. 1, it has been crumpled up. It's got several creases in it. 2, it has a mark on it. So not only is it a PSA 1, but it's a PSA 1 with a qualifier. It's a PSA 1 MK. Guess what? You don't know anybody else who owns one. It's just me. And that's because there's only such a few of them out there. Like, they are in the most serious collectors' hands, and I will never get a shot at another one of them. Another one hasn't been sold in the last decade publicly. Like, I own it, and it's a really important card. And I couldn't care less of, obviously I would like it to be in better condition. That would be great. But it doesn't matter to me, the condition, compared to just the fact that I own the card. And so, yeah, that's the thing I would change in the hobby.
Rarity. It comes down to rarity, guys. Rarity rules. At the end of the day, rarity rules. Okay, let's keep on going. Question number 5. What is your biggest, and you can do 2, your biggest hobby regret in terms of a purchase and or a sale?
My biggest hobby, I don't have a lot of things that I bought that I regret. It's weird to say, but I really don't. I really have very few things that I bought that I regret. So
you can also answer with your biggest regret that you didn't buy.
Oh man, I've got a lot of those.
I'm sure we all do. That's not a great question considering where we are right now in the hobby, but I'll let you answer with what you were planning with, and then we'll go on to a few comments. I'll do card of the day and we'll wrap up.
Well, I will just say that I've been in the hobby, like I said, for 30 years, and I've known a lot of people in the hobby, and I've had lots of opportunities to buy a lot of things over the years. I had the chance to buy basically everything, right? The card that I regret selling the most, though, there's 2 of them, and I can't decide which one, so I'm gonna have to give you both. I owned one of the 3 known Wilt Chamberlain autographed rookie cards. I owned it for a couple of months, and then the guy who was putting together the set in PSA DNA messaged me, and he got on the phone with me, and he was this honest, sincere, wonderful human. His name's Mike, and he wanted to finish that set, and he needed my card. And that's the sort of person that I cave to, because like you, Jeremy, I want my cards that I love to go to homes, right? I want to sell it to the end user who's going to own it forever. And Mike is going to own that card forever. And if I was going to sell it to anybody, it would be him. The other one ended up in the great Philip Goz, I think is his Instagram. He's the best Kobe collector. He's got to be the best Kobe collector in the world, if not the one of them. And before I started really collecting Kobe back in 2016, I acquired one of his very best cards in existence, his Eminence Championship tag, which is signed with an inscription that says 5 times champs. So the tag on it says the Lakers 16 times, and then down below he signed it 5 times champs. It's just the perfect Kobe card, and I still have one of the cards he traded me for it, and it's one of my favorite cards. But like, that is a perfect example. Card number 2. I will never get another chance at it, and it's gone. And I love that card, and I'll always regret moving it.
All right, man. That's the Sports Cards Live 5 questions. Thank you for that. A couple comments have been trickling in. Jordan says, I agree. Just love having a card regardless of condition. Hashtag binder life. I love it. Alex says, how about the aesthetics beauty of a card for a price factor? And I mean, I'll just, and this is going to be a perfect lead in to my card of the day. And as you guys, if you've been watching, my card of the day is a card from my personal collection. And I try and relate it to my guest for the evening in some way. And I think there is, to Alex's comment here, I think that prettier cards that more people find to be visually appealing will sell for more money because they're just nicer to look at. You know, I will only rarely buy a card that I don't like the looks of. And the only reason I'll do it is if I deem it to be an important card. Maybe I didn't like the design of the rookies that year, but I need that guy's rookie card. That's the only time I'll buy a card I don't like the looks of. So I think it makes sense. Okay. I think unless Adam, unless you want to say something about that, I'll reveal my card of the day. And all right. So this is a card, guys, that I love. It's probably the best card I own. So it's I'm coming out swinging here tonight. And it's a card that I bought I picked it up in January. I bought it from a fellow who had purchased it and only owned it for a couple of weeks before he realized that something else came out he needed. And he was willing to sell it, but he wasn't willing to lose money on it. And I had to pay him for what he paid, plus his shipping, plus to ship it to me. So at the time, I think I bought it for maybe more than one had sold for in the past. But the reason I bought it, one of the reasons I bought it, number one, it's an iconic card. But number two, I held one in hand at the National last year when I met Adam. And Adam had a small box of cards, like a 400 count box, basically. And in it, he had, I don't know, a dozen to 20 cards. And he let me look through them. And it was the who's who of Jordan cards. So I saw it, and it's a card I thought was unattainable. I'd never own it, but I wanted it badly because of how beautiful it is and what the card means in the hobby. And I ended up acquiring it, I guess, 5 or so months later. But if I never held it in hand, if I never held Adam's copy in hand in August of 2019, I don't know that I ever would have picked it up. Terry Fortune knows what I'm talking about. It is the 1997 EX 2001 Jambalaya Michael Jordan. It's in a 9.5 holder. And, Alex's question, speaking about the aesthetics and beauty of a card, yeah, this card has everything going for it. And especially the way Jordan is like leaping off the card. It's not the video doesn't do it justice. That's a bright orange and a really bright green. It's got a lenticular feature to it, almost like a 3D action going on. Just an amazing card. I love it. It's got 3 9.5s and a 10 for subgrade, so it's better than a True Gem. It's True Gem Plus, I think I could call that. And yeah, it's my card of the day, and it's probably my card of the year for that matter. So, really,
are you happy you bought it? Did you make a good financial decision?
Well, look at the smile on my face right now. I do love the card, and part of that smile is based on what's happened to that card since I bought it. I mean, when I bought it, I probably broke a record for what was ever paid for that card in a 9.5. If you look at what one just sold for that wasn't the subgrades, lower subgrades than what I have, it sold for almost double what I paid. So yeah, it was, I mean, if I were to sell it, I'd make a nice handful of money. But it's not for sale. It's staying with me. I love the card. It represents so much to me in this hobby. It represents this new phase of the hobby that I entered into a couple of years ago when I got into some 90s cards and some more basketball outside of just Hall of Fame rookies. And it also represents new friendships in the hobby for me, new platforms in the hobby for me. So yeah, I love the card for sure. Okay.
Can I comment on it?
Yeah, please. Go quick, though, man. Go quick.
I talked earlier about when iconic meets rare, and you have in your hand and in your possession, like, just inarguably one of the greatest Michael Jordan inserts. A card that is available publicly maybe 2 to 3 times a year, that will increasingly become more difficult to find. that was inserted into a product that's one of the greatest sort of products of all time. And the artwork on there is perfect, and yours is in better condition than mine and in better condition than almost anybody's. It's one of the nicest ones in the world, and you own it. And like, to me, that's just a card. Like, I've had a lot of offers for mine. I just have no interest in selling it because it's just a really important card. And when you compare that with stuff that you can just go out and find at any time, I just sit there and just kind of go, okay, like, people can keep buying that stuff. But that card you have there, that is the Michael Jordan insert. And it might not be the most valuable. It's probably not the most valuable, but it is the Michael Jordan insert, in my opinion.
It represents, so even in terms of the design, like you said, the design and the effects that they used at Fleer back in those years. Okay. We're going to run through the comments and we're going to sign off. I want to, Jake will certainly appreciate that card as a 90s basketball card expert. Thank you. Thank you, Jake, for the comment. Great chat as always, fellas. Really appreciate that. Simon, no after hours tonight. After hours is only on Saturdays. I work tomorrow. Terry knew I was bringing out the jambalaya. So did Simon. Jeff says, not into basketball, but really enjoyed the show. Love this channel. Thank you, Jeff. That warms my heart. Thank you so very much. Jake, hell yeah, I knew you'd like that. Simon, the bombs are going off. Legion, well, thank you for joining as always. Simon says, that is true card porn. I think that says it very well. That is true card porn. All right, guys, this has been a lot of fun. We're only 10 minutes into overtime. I thought we could have got a lot. We could have gone a lot further, Adam, but let's wrap things up. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. Greatly appreciate it. Thank you to Adam for joining me, man. You're an awesome guest. I want to schedule you again for like 3 months down the road and have you on once a quarter, because the discussions and the viewership is strong. The comments and questions from the viewers are always on point and well thought out. Really love it. Absolute says, thanks for the great show, guys. Hey, we work and it's 12 a.m. Hit the thumbs up button and subscribe to the channel. Thank you. Carlos says, thanks for coming by, Adam. Great stuff. Agreed. Again, thanks to you. Thanks everybody for viewing. If you haven't subscribed, please do. I'll be back on on Saturday with John Newman from Sports Card Nation and Hobby Hotline. Next Wednesday with tonight's participant, Jordan Hagedorn, Brett Favre Super Collector, NFL agent, marketer extraordinaire. Looking forward to that one. Alex says, completely agree with the rarity sentiments. Also rare that I got outbid by both of you on items in the last few weeks. That's hilarious. Hey, great minds think alike, as they say. So again, thank you everybody so much for joining. This has been really fun. Adam, you are a great guest. We're going to book you in right now. So stay right there. Everybody else, we will see you soon. Thanks everybody for joining. This was a ton of fun. Good night.